What up, folks? It's Mikey G here, the Midlife Crisis Show. I am super stoked, and I'm going to say it the American way, to have Milan here. He says it a little different way, but I'm going to keep on screwing it up if I don't say it the right way. But we're going to have an amazing conversation. He is yet another example of what midlife crisis stands for, and that is doing things the right, genuine way. And before that, got to tell you a little bit about my weekend. So, uh, Milan, over here in America, there's this massive golf tournament called the Waste Management Open. It probably makes national headlines. It's the one golf tournament of the year where they let roughly 250,000 people on the golf course one day. It's in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's people literally just go there to get shit faced. And there's this hole, the 16th hole is called, and it is literally encompassed with stands. And if someone misses a putt or makes a hole in one, people go ape shit. People are throwing cup. It's out of control. So I got to go there this weekend. My brother-in-law works for a massive airplane company called Honeywell, and he got us like some primo suite tickets right next to the green. Bro, it was one of the craziest things I've seen, and it was at a golf tournament of all places. So that's what I did this weekend. It was super cool. Took a quick trip. I live in San Diego, so it's like a 45-minute flight to get over to Phoenix. Had a wild weekend. Just needed to tell you all and update you that because it was incredible. But enough about me. We got Milan here. We're going to talk about an amazing company, Degenheim. But we're also going to talk about his life, what makes him tick, and why he's here in Web3. So, Milan, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Hey, greetings. Doing pretty well. Thanks for having us. Or me personally, feel really, really honored that we were actually approached. So, thank you.
Absolutely, man. And before we get into our world famous midlife crisis question, we always like to do a little formal introduction so you know a little about Milan. Obviously, we're going to get deeper into the podcast, but a couple kind of resume bullet points. Started a small design and development business of his own. He worked on games in the mobile industry, which generated up to 9 figures of revenue. Been in gaming for well over a decade, so it makes sense he's trying to build Degenheim. And he's a business and customer experience optimization. He did that for multiple companies and multiple different industries. So, Milan, it's already here. World famous midlife crisis question. How did you get to the seat you're sitting in today? We like to describe that as give us Star Wars episode 1, 2, and 3. 1 being your childhood, any influences that kind of molded your mindset to who you are today. 2 is your professional career. You can talk a little bit about your design company and anything else in the gaming industry. And then 3, your Web3 journey today and what we can expect in the future. So let's start with episode 1, man. Cannot wait to hear it. Give it to me.
Well, thank you. I guess it originated when I actually got to first play video games. Like I was instantly hooked, even as a child, and that was back in the days when computers were old as fuck. Like MS DOS, not even Windows was around here. You had like the pixelated games, and we played I think Mortal Kombat 2 or Golden Axe on Sega with
Golden Axe, bro. I cannot believe you brought that up.
my
Altered Beast.
dude, like Golden Axe is so goaded, and people don't even know it. That's the first thing. And
Yeah,
second thing, I used to play it with my cousins at their house because they only had a old Sega console.
right.
And my younger cousin, his wife gave him some new adaptation with all the classical Sega games, and he just like called me up like, dude, you won't believe what I just got. And he just like sent me a photo, and I'm like, I'm on my way. And we
Oh,
just played, and we we're like 2 30-year-old dudes, like getting our asses handed over and playing until we had like blisters on our thumbs.
right.
Super good throwback. But that is probably when it began because like we got to it as kids, and me and my 2 cousins, and it just never left us. And
Yeah.
I chose to actually pursue it professionally also.
And so you found video games through your buddies, or were you buying consoles? What was that? What was
No, 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 no. It's like my family got one old PC, and that
Oh,
was my source of gaming.
right.
The Sega console was at my cousin's house, so
Mm-hmm.
if we wanted to play console games, I had to just like travel over and play that. And with old PCs around here, you just went and played whatever you got your hands on, like Doom. When I remember when I found out there was a Doom 2, and I was like Doom 2, and
Oh,
and a neighbor of mine, like three houses over, she came to me like, I got it, I can get it, and I just like borrowed it, and I played it, and then I called up my cousins like, dudes, I got Doom 2, and they were like, we're on our way, and they just came, and we spent like days playing it. So it
dude,
was very, very different times.
you're bringing up such like just fond memories. My dad bought me a Nintendo and a Sega. He actually had an Intellivision. I don't know if you ever heard
Mhm.
of that, but that was before Atari, right? And there was a game called Choplifter on the Sega, and it just and Fantasy Zone. Those games blew my mind and just kind of like molded my obsession with gaming. I've literally had every console. So I was a console gamer because of the internet and the computer. I'm 42, so internet computers didn't exist when I was little the way they
Those
do
were the
today.
times.
So I've had, I shit you not, man, I have had every console except for the Neo Geo and the Jaguar. But I have had Sega CD, Sega 32X. I've had a Sega Saturn. I've had all of the PlayStations, all of the Xboxes. Like I am console gamer through and through. I
Mhm.
literally have a Switch, a PS5, and Xbox Series X sitting in my house right now. So, dude, so many fond memories. That's amazing. Uh, I think. I
Envy
think.
you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, envy you, man. I didn't have these capabilities. I just had a PC. There was like the family PC, and I could use it when nobody was using it.
Right.
And it was just spare parts, which a friend of my dad's was just like, who would otherwise throw them away or melt them down or whatsoever. And whenever I asked for like when Game Boy was a thing and everybody was playing Pokemon and shit like that, or PS1, PS2 were a thing, like I always wanted them, and my parents were just like, you got a PC. Like, what the fuck do you want a console for? What the fuck do you want a Game Boy for? So I'm the literal opposite. I never had anything. I just had like an old PC, and whatever I could get my hands on that the PC would run, I would play. So limited capabilities.
Yeah. So I think a natural question that immediately comes up is how did that kind of like obviously it created your obsession with video games, but
Mhm.
any like skill sets, memories, or like things throughout that period of like you manifesting like I did almost an obsession, right, with these skill sets, impact on the mindset, anything you can think of there as you're starting to get familiar with video games and playing through them.
First of all, English. Like
Ooh,
I, I just came out and I had perfect English because I loved playing RPG games. And back in the day of the old times, as you mentioned, internet
right,
wasn't there. And when you loved playing RPGs, and you just had to figure that shit out, and there was a lot of text, and you had to understand, you had to figure it out. So suddenly I knew a lot of good English.
right.
But retrospectively, when I look at it, playing games for so many years, the
Hmm.
biggest advantage it gave me probably is the fact that when I chose to pursue a professional career in gaming, I know why good games were good games. What were the fun parts? What were the critical things? What are the things that actually like made you play tomorrow? And when
Right,
you were you had your spare time and you were like, God, I want to play now. And like all the psychology behind the fact of what gets you hooked into the game that actually makes you want to play again and again, 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 again. Because that is what a lot of the newer games struggle. It's like, oh, they're awesome. You play them for I don't know, 3 days, and suddenly like, there's no fun. But
right,
remember, we had like Golden Axe to a side-scrolling platformer for two players at max, right?
right,
Pixelated graphics. You could play that shit for fucking years because it was fun.
right,
And even with the few combos you had, you still had some variety that kept you
right,
going back and back, and increasing difficulty and this and that, and all the various game mechanics. If you look at Golden Axe versus Diablo versus CS 1.6 or Half-Life,
Right.
suddenly you start seeing all the things like, oh, like this is what keeps you hooked to the game and returning. And I guess that one was it. Is like you get to reverse engineer your brain to find out what felt the most enjoyable, what
Right.
was the most pleasant experience, especially when it comes to, for example, onboarding. So you don't jump into a game and the game just like overwhelms you with everything, and you'll be like, like, what do I do first? What do I learn? And you're troubled with the mechanics. It's the pacing, it's the creation of the mechanics, and just like creating a big puzzle that just then fits into each other. I think that would be it.
Right. I love that. So you're creating, I think that was an awesome description. I could hear your passion. But I would love to condense that because I think this is amazing insight. So let's try to condense that. Give me 2 to 3 bullet points, right? Of what you think makes a great game and why. Like I want that concise answer because I think this is something people need to hear coming from your perspective.
The fun factor and progression.
Okay.
It's the fun factor comes down to a lot of things. It can be controls, it can
Right.
be that it's like a very primitive game, hyper casual game, or just a PvP game, depends on what the genre is targeting. And progression is the holy book of what keeps you hooked. People think it's the combat, it's the graphics, the fuck no. It's progression. Every single game you ever played kept you hooked because of progression. You played Witcher, it was the new quest, the new
Yeah.
sword, the new armor, the new this.
Right.
Always some carrot on a stick like dangling in front of your nose
Right.
that you can chase. And just when you catch one of them, you suddenly see three of the new carrots, and you're like, shiny. And every single game, was it a sure game, new weapon? Is it a competitive game, new rank, more kills? Is it even like mobile, like League of Legends? The progression inside the match, higher level, new skills, better items, better damage. Then meta progression. You advance in ranks and so on. Like that. That was probably the holy grail that makes great game. Means of meta progression that reward you often and that feel very pleasant to you. That is probably
Right.
the gold mine of it.
Dude, I love that you said that because you actually just verbalized what happened to me and why and I never knew why, right? And I think that's a great way to describe it. But Final Fantasy and just the earlier ones, right? Like
Hmm.
7, 8, 9, 10. Like I've played every Final Fantasy that has existed, even like 2 and 3, right? They remade them and put them on mobile. But there is some just tiny little satisfaction. For me and my co-founder, Maddie, I wish he was here. He would just be so excited. Uh, just grinding, right? Just literally getting that next pop-up window that said you went up an experience level and I got more power and strength. That tiny little interaction had me hooked. And your description of progression totally makes sense to me. Any thoughts about that, or is that kind of does that kind
No,
of
no,
make
no,
sense?
no, dude. That's exactly that. That's exactly that. Like even when you're in hyper casual games, it's just the fact that you achieved a new level, a new
Right,
obstacle, new whatever challenge,
right,
up to hardcore games such as old school World of Warcraft was. Like when
right,
you had all the shitty equipment and suddenly you looted your first shoulders because for the first, I don't know, 20 levels you didn't have any shoulder armor. And
right,
you looted them and your first helmet, you were like, oh cool, right? Up to Path of Exile nowadays, which is this giant like talent tree, and there's people grinding 2 weeks because they're min maxers just to get 2% extra
right,
DPS. Right?
right,
Everything is progression,
right,
and the old games. It's fascinating how the old games, when basically gaming was in its diapers,
right,
nailed this perfectly without doing that intentionally.
right,
Back in the day, people were just like, you can watch old school interviews with Romero like, and Carmack, who did Doom, right? And they even like they distributed Doom back in the day as shareware, like they pirated their own shit and gave it out to students of universities just so people could get their hands on Doom.
right,
And and they just told us like our only intention was to make great games, and the old school games just made great games, and by accident they nailed this down pretty perfectly.
Right, dude. In like early gaming piece, Seventh Guest, Mist, all of the King's Quests. Like I played all of those, man, and it was just oh, dude. Command and Conquer was like, when you
Oh.
still had like the basic internet. I'm talking dial up, right? I mean, one of my fondest memories, talk about this all the time, is we realized the original Command and Conquer, right? So we were at houses, like at this point, like we're a couple houses down, or like running in between houses, like shit talking, right? Because you had no voice over
Hmm.
internet. But we figured out you could right everything you had to build that was touching some other structure you had built, right? And it was a huge desert map. And dude, we took like 45 minutes as we were building our base. We were building one sandbag at a time, selling it, building it, selling it, building it, all the way across the desert. And we built an obelisk right in the middle of their base, and they just panicked. They're like, how the fuck did this thing get here? And it just destroyed their base. One of my fondest memories of all time, just playing video games like that. Um, Dude, the dopamine rush is great, and it's all of the things that you're saying are getting me excited. One of the things that I'm interested though is let's go to kind of like your development, personal life, like who impacted you, any stories that come up. Did you have mentors through uncles, grandparents, your parents? What did that look like as you were growing up?
As in what I'm doing now, or just like in general?
I think in general, but as you're talking about it, really referencing things that impacted the way you think, right? Whether
Mm.
you had a ton of money, did not have a ton of money, like that, did you learn to grind or through that, or were there perspectives that people that you met that helped you kind of form the
Hmm.
person that you are today?
Well, it is like a mixture of things.
Hmm.
Like I originally came up from like very not really fortunate, let's
Right,
say, circumstances. Like back
right,
in the day, I remember where currently is in my parents' house a living room. There was a room when two families were sleeping, like my parents with me and my
wow,
aunt, her husband, and two kids. So it was like what, seven people in one room.
wow,
And our parents, like me and my cousins, they worked really really hard. Like my uncle, he was a sailor. he
right,
was he was gone for months just so he could provide for his family.
right,
My father, he sacrificed like 10, 15 years of his life where he worked 6.5 days a week. Like he basically
wow,
worked 6 full-time days, and on Sunday he worked until 12. It was until noon. Then he came home, had a little nap, and then did stuff around the house.
right,
And I didn't really appreciate it when I was younger, because me and my father had a lot of differences, because I was more like intellectually focused and he was like very super handy person,
right,
and he never understood things that I was passionate about. Like he was the dude that was like chasing me away from the computer, like go do something real, like this is going to like destroy your eyes and you're going to be
right,
addicted, like this kind of mentality.
right,
However, it is kind of like a thing that I was highly intellectual. I was somewhat of a wonder kid. I Whatever I touched, I knew. I was winning competition. Just like with English, I got perfect English just from playing games, and I
wow,
got perfect German just from watching cartoons. Like one day I
wow,
just came, and my father came and he was like, "Oh, why are you watching these German cartoons?" I'm like, "Because I understand." I mean, he was like, "The fuck you are," and I was like, "Yeah." Like, and he brought me to the German teacher. She was like super strict. Like everybody was having the
right,
worst kind of grades, and he like took me to her and he was like, "My son claims he can speak German and he never had any German tuition," and she was like, "Yeah, the fuck he does." And then I just like started speaking, and she was like, and like whatever I ever touched academically, I
yeah,
was winning competitions. Like at university, I didn't even try. The university was actually begging me to like do a scientific paper and so on. But
Yeah.
later on, as life went by, I kind of understood that academics isn't really like anything in the real world. It's just like
Right.
super detached from that. And I started realizing what my parents did back in the day. As I grew older, when I was like around 20, I I did somehow realize when I thought that like, okay, my father, we had some differences, but at the end of the day, like look at what the dude did. Like he
Right.
worked 6.5 days and still took care of me while my mother was pursuing her career. He sacrificed his, and I was like, dude, you're a fucking superhero.
Right.
And
Right.
and he's a normal guy from just a small village, just like his father, for example, was. He was by no means famous, by no means successful. He was just a good guy, my grandfather. And when he passed, like thousands of people showed up to his funeral, and I was like, this is who I want to be. I
Yeah.
want to be known for doing great things, but not just like, oh, let's get money and Lambos and yachts and like I don't give a
Right.
fuck.
Right.
Like even when we did digital, I didn't buy one single piece of anything new since I built this company,
Right.
besides like cheap clothing and whatsoever.
Right. Right. Right.
First thing I did, I was like, I took some money and I gave it to my parents. It was like, and my mother lost her job, and I was like, Mom, you don't have to work. I'll cover your expense. Like chill out, right?
Right.
And that's the whole reason. Like I only pursue career success just so I can take care of people around me, and hopefully, my ultimate dream would be somehow really helping the world, which I
Oh,
do sincerely think is possible with Web3 gaming.
dude, you're giving me chills because I mean, you're real. You know, you really are, man. Because like this is what's so missed in the industry, and we'll get there, right? I wanna cover, but you said a couple things that really resonate, and I think people need to hear this again, which is I did the same thing too, right? I was frustrated at my parents and I got upset because my dad was a mailman, right? My mom stayed
Mhm.
at home. And it wasn't so much that I was intellectual and versus them working. It was more that um, I think my dad wasn't um the dad at times that I saw other dads have, right?
Mhm.
But then I look back and I'm like, my mom had me at 19, right? At 21, she had 2 kids. They're concentrating on putting food on the table. They really don't have much time for else, much less, by the way, they're learning life, right? They're learning how to grow up and they have 2 kids. I have a 5-month-old now and I'm 42. And I am, like, looking back now, and to your point, they're superheroes times a million, right? Like, I could never do what they did. There's no way. Like, they are literally superhumans. And then the other thing to layer on that, which I think is important, is success in this world, especially in Web3, is defined by Lambo, yachts, money. But the perspective that you have and the perspective I got to that perspective going through a very traumatic, major depressive order. Um, if you chase those things, you end up at the wrong place. But if you chase making an impact and a difference, that's true success. And I love that you align with that. Any response to what I just said? Or are you just 100% agreeing?
I totally agree,
Yeah.
especially with the parents part. Like, so many people I see nowadays are shitting on their parents,
Right.
not really realizing that a lot of our parents had us at 20 something, or even pre 20. And
Yeah.
when I look at myself, like where I was at 19, like I was at university,
Right.
and I was just like capable of studying. I had no money to my name. Like, exactly. You tell me your mom had you at 19. Like, I was a retarded kid at that time. I
Right.
wasn't able to take care of myself, not to be able to take care of sentient beings which basically rely just on me. Like that is these capabilities at 19, you're a wizard
Right.
in my opinion. Like me, I can't even compare myself to anyone just like that, ever.
100%. 100%. Part of me says, like at that point, right? You're like your real primal instincts to turn on, and it's just like a part of survival, right? It's like when you get down to the option, like, well, these kids gotta live, right? So I gotta do
Mhm.
whatever I can do to keep them breathing. But still, it's just it's a miraculous feat, and I thank them to this day for doing that. And I would say the other thing, I talk about this a lot. Um, and I don't know about you. I'd be interested to hear um why, because like you said, you were, yeah, at times you had 7 people in one room, right? Like other people grow up with very fortunate things. And you know, we had some rough times, but like, I mean, listen, overall, I lived a pretty privileged life. You know, one being I was just a white dude born in America. Like you know, that's a good place to start, right? But what am I getting at? Oh, yes. What I was getting at is I knew every day that I woke up, undeniably, my parents loved me with all of their heart. And I think that single thing alone, that I knew I had the support and my parents were gonna be there no matter what, and they loved me 1,000%, was the number one thing why I am the person I am today. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's admirable, and I also agree
Yeah,
that like understanding that like being born in America as whoever whatever, right?
right,
At the time of your young age, that was like you won at life. You just got like the biggest lottery ticket you could ever get. Right? That
right.
was the golden age of America. Like
Yep,
here in Central Europe, especially in like the post-Soviet countries, like I'm from Slovakia, you
mhm,
couldn't do shit.
right,
Like unless you were born to some politician's friend, like you couldn't do shit. So
right,
even that is the golden ticket. And nowadays, if you're in a country where you do you have like roof over your head, do you have
right,
anything to eat,
right.
like stable supply of food and of
Yep,
water, you're top five or even 1% of the world, and people don't realize this. Like when you
yes,
put this into perspective, suddenly it's like, I had a bad week. Like, shit doesn't matter.
right,
Shit doesn't matter. Like tell that please to some Asian kid which is working in a sweatshop. Please go explain how shit is your life. And that just a lot of times, even when I look at stuff like this, it just like clears your mind. It's like, Psh, I'm doing awesome. I'm doing awesome. Like this is the struggle I'm supposed to have, because when you struggle, you grow. And and suddenly I welcome the challenge. I welcome the adversity, and I actually admire that.
right.
As you mentioned, like some people are born into very fortunate circumstances. I admire those who overcame adversity much more than those who were born as rich kids or whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah, and it's another thing I say all the time is, you know, when I got really sick, um, not having the love, not having the support network, right? All alone, not even having the help, you know. I had money. You know, I was paying $1,000 a month to go to therapy and have the right help, right? And there's
Hmm.
people that don't have that. They're in a place where they might not even have clean water. They might not even have parents, right? And they go through what I went through and somehow come out the other end as like an upstanding human. Like that shit is that Superman, man. That is Superman's fantasy. Superman is that person that went through what I went through with no help and somehow put that shit together. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's insane to see that, because I'll tell you what, if I didn't have what I had, I probably would have done some pretty horrible shit, like really
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
stuff, right? Uh, and it's dude, the conversation is incredible already. I knew this was going to be fantastic because we really have similar mindsets, and the reason why we have these conversations of the childhood and what we're doing right now is because I think that really sets the stage when people listen to this. I would hope they would resonate with the fact that like Milan is like he's the real fucking deal. He works hard. He has the right mindset. And this is the type of place I want to spend my money and something I want to be interested in. Before we get to kind of episode two and kind of your professional career, which is going to be another great conversation. Any other thoughts about childhood experiences, mentors? Like you talked about realizing later on in life hard work from your dad. You know, really admirable. having sport, going through tough times, but understanding the importance of the grind. Super intellectual, right? You're almost like a savant at some point. Things just came naturally to you. Anything else you want to add there in the childhood before we move on?
Childhood, no. Already adult life, probably. I had
Right.
I had one person who I would call a mentor, but
Right.
indirectly. It was actually the mom of my best friend.
Okay.
She's like super successful and also very admirable. Like she's like a single mom who managed to raise the best friend of mine into a very admirable man. She
Hmm.
managed to like provide for the whole family, even take care of her parents and do really well, and still is a very decent human being.
Right.
And when I was working in for governments and was like digitalizing Europe's government services,
Hmm.
healthcare, and so on,
Right.
I got this opportunity thanks to her because like I approached her and she didn't tell me to fuck off because I
Right.
was young and I was eager, and she gave me the chance and I worked my ass off. And I already at that time thought that I had a very professional attitude towards work. And
Right.
then I came and worked with her, and I was like, I'm fucking nothing. Like her, like that level of professionalism,
Hmm.
I've never seen that. Like she was so respected. Like I see so many people and crying like, oh, we're marginalized because I'm a woman, I'm a this, I'm a that. She was a woman who studied architecture and ended up as the number one project manager for some years in whole Central Europe. She even
Wow.
didn't study for it, and she's like certificates and so on. And
Right.
she was like the head of which is like the telecom, which is like a telecommunications operator for whole Europe, and she was like the head of the whole region for all project management. She digitalized so much of Europe single-handedly, and she,
Right.
she was like a woman who did this, and she didn't even study it. And I saw that in action, that we were sitting in a huge meeting. There were like me, software architects, developers, and da da da, and some
Uh-huh.
some government people, and some huge ass like big ace name came into, and it was like, oh, I was sent to help you with all this. I'm an expert. And then he just saw her at the head of the table, and he's like, oh, Sylvia, you're here. Well, I might just fuck off. I'm useless when you're here. And boom, and he just like closed the door, and he went straight away. And I was like, the fuck just happened, right? And exactly, I saw that level of professionalism. Like she either knew shit, and if she didn't, she was like, okay, who do I ask? Bam, 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 bam. Next time we meet, she was like, I got this. Bam, 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 and down the list, and everybody was like, and nobody could keep up with her tempo.
Right.
Nobody,
Right.
nobody. And that was probably one of the if not the only mentor role in my life when I was looking up to someone with their sheer level of professionalism. And the best part was she was endlessly kind. She was
Oh,
at her position being the number one project manager in the whole Central fucking Europe.
yeah.
She talked to, and she was approached, and even some ladies didn't treat her well, like officials from the government who were earning like a few $100, right?
Right.
Like literally people with zero competence treating her like shit. She was always respectful, never talking down to anyone, always kind. And I was like, wow, this is the most admirable thing. You're super competent, you're well paid, well known, and yet you never make anyone feel lesser than you.
Right. Dude, it's such, to talk about this in the Web3 world all the time is you see the FUD, the hate, the anger, right? And it's me and my co-founder talk about this all this. It's like people, and you realize a very simple concept. Life is a lot harder with more enemies, right? You're you're not
Mm-hmm.
you're not creating an easier future for yourself by just
Mm-mm.
pissing off more people, right? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
want friends, like, one of the top keys we all know, networking is the key to life. So, like, if you have more good relationships, you're probably gonna be more successful. And I love that you bring that up as simple because the same for me in my professional career. I've had some horrible bosses, and I think the number one reason why they were horrible is they would shit on everything, right? And they wouldn't understand that we talk about this a lot too. I think I'm convinced every human has a superpower, right? And you as a leader, that's the other thing. These leaders just don't understand how to get that out of people or how to talk to them appropriately to help them find themselves. Like that's what leaders should be doing. It shouldn't be like, hey, you didn't do this right or you didn't do this on time. There's a reason that happened. What is that reason? And try to help figure them out. Like I
Hmm.
love that you bring that up though. It's such an important fact that people need again to realize these very simple principles that we talk about on this show to help success. And I love that you put it in that context because hopefully someone listens to this and they hear it in your context and it finally resonates with them because one of the principles we talk around too is we can talk about this shit till we're blue in the face, but not till it kind of personally resonates with you or you experience it and then you look back like, oh, that's what Milan and Mike were talking about, right? And it resonates internally. Will it ever make a change? But at least we can talk about it and hopefully help somebody out in the future. So I love that insight, man. That was a fantastic episode 1. We crushed it. We went through a lot of learning principles. We went through a lot of talking video games, and now we're into episode 2 already. And I would love to really talk about give me the highlights, right? You don't have to go super deep into every company, but like say take the highlights of your professional career. And again, I really like the context of mentors, growth, learning lessons throughout that time.
Hmm. Well, starting with the small to medium business solution studio I founded, it was probably doing interesting projects like digital fashion showrooms and gamified stores. Like I remember we created a store which was gamified. Like we had a small mini game that was actually online. And when you played the mini game, you were actually getting points, which then allowed you to buy certain limited items into the store, unlock discounts, and so on. And at first, I was like skeptical of the business plan of the client, but then it was a huge success. Like actually, it was like the game, despite being like a mini game for an e-commerce store, I think it had like 8,000 concurrent players at its peak, which was like, and people contacted me like, dude, I don't even give a fuck about this store. I just come to play sometimes just to like enjoy it for the fun. And then when I transitioned into gaming, it was just like working on these big ass games. Like when you come into touch with names like Lego, and I was like a huge Lego kid, dude. Like I played with Lego for my whole primary school. Like I was addicted. Like when I was a kid, my parents bought me a Lego for like Christmas, and my mom had to carry me in hands to get to eat. Like I wouldn't give a shit about eating. And when you suddenly get to like in contact with him, you're like, dream come true, right? And or like EA, and you remember like I played so many EA games and so on. And when you work in this environment for so long and you get these experiences, like it's overwhelming that the giants you grew up with and you were some names in somewhere in America across the world, and suddenly you like work with them, and it's like that's probably the highlight. And even like for example, our artist, this wasn't my personal experience, but our artist, he was a colleague of mine, and he drew for Star Wars, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And when he was like sending me the sneak peeks and like, what do you think, what do you think? I was like, like, oh, this is awesome, this is awesome. And you were like super geeking out, but like, this is my reality, this is our work. Like our work is geeking the fuck out on our favorite franchises, working for them, and nothing beats that. Nothing beats that prior to,
Right.
to like what we're doing now.
Yeah, and there's something about that. I think um did you feel fortunate at that point because people talk about this all the time, getting paid for something that you love to do. Did you work to acquire that, or do you feel like it kind of fell in your lap?
Absolutely grinded my fucking ass off for years. It's just like this shit doesn't come to you, and it's especially due to the fact that here in Slovakia there's not many gaming options. There's a lot of people who want to work in gaming, and there's not many opportunities, and you have to be good because people here are good. People underestimate the CEE region which is the number one price to performance region for developers and technical people in the world,
Really?
globally. So it's like, imagine you have like three studios or indie game development here, which you have to fund yourself.
Right.
So to make it and to be someone in that in those three studios, like you gotta like hustle the fuck out of yourself. It's not
Right.
just like, oh hello, and you're like, bam, hired. It's like, nope. It's like you have to come with a portfolio, you have to come with skills, you have
Right.
to like show the shit and that you can handle stuff. And like when I came for the interview to actually work in a bigger gaming agency, which would be because we worked on games which are already running or like releasing, and we helped them scale, like grow bigger. And like I had to come with the portfolio, and I just like came to it, and I just like showed like, this is what I did. I did I created a game for disabled children as my final thesis for university, and I showed them,
Right.
and this is my thinking, this is this, and suddenly the dude, like the CTO of the company was like, dude, and it's like I'm citing him. It was like, dude, this is the most fucking awesome portfolio we have ever seen. Like, what the fuck? And I was like, is that a good thing? And he was like, you're hired. And he was like, that's it. That's it. It was like, come meet the CEO. And they just took me. And I was like,
So
and
so
yeah, it
that's
took a lot of work.
yeah, that's an incredible story. And I think someone with your skill set and talent that has gone through this and is now making, has worked and created a gaming company, now has his own game studio. There, to your point, a ton of aspiring people to do. They want to do what you're doing. Top two or three lessons or advice for them when they watch this.
Don't be afraid to begin. Try a lot of shit out. Fail fast and fail often. That teaches you more than any success. Like get fucked, really, and that really really teaches you. And the second of this thing is that if you have the if you have the ability or possibility to work at some bigger company that just like does shit for big ass games and big ass names, do it. You learn so much so fast because you
Right.
meet a whole different kind of people. Like suddenly you're talking to people who had something or like talks with Candy Crush and their algorithm and how their progression works to keep the people hooked. And like I remember this conversation very very vividly. Like I talked to a game designer. He's like a doctor of psychology, and we did a reverse engineering dissection of Candy Crush and its success. And he told me that he had some prior experience with their game designers and so on and so on. Like
Hmm.
that knowledge I would never come to if it was just me. But me working at a company, suddenly working with people who already have experience with Google, with EA, with Lego, with Boombit, with Nimblebit, like games which are crossing $200 million,
Right.
easy, even more.
Right.
The amount of knowledge and experience you can suddenly amass
Yeah.
in a quick time, like a year, insane,
Right.
insane. And then when you combine this with the things that you tried it yourself, the struggle of development, the all the on hand shenanigans and so on, you gain very good perspective with all the higher level things, and also all the grunt work you have to do. When you combine this, you have a very unique value proposition that you suddenly can cover, or at least like think of both of these areas. Because a lot of people are like, I'm top level management, I have no fucking idea what happens here. And then
Right.
there's people like, I'm a developer, I have no business understanding, I don't give a fuck about this. But when you
Right.
combine this, magic happens.
Yeah, magic. I love that you said that. You said a couple things that I'm very interested in. You don't have to recount the whole conversation, but you said you talked to a guy and you kind of reverse engineer Candy Crush, and what made it so successful. Super interested in insights from that conversation.
If I were to put it in half layman terms and as simple as possible, Candy Crush succeeds at alternating cycles of dopamine and frustration. It's like a match 3 game isn't anything new. It was here from the dawn of time.
Mhm.
But you get it into the pockets of people, especially women, because women are the main source of Candy Crush's $1.2 billion of revenue annually, right? But
Mhm.
especially like stay-at-home moms, 40 around and plus, right? And you give it a nice visual. Everything is colorful, everything pops, blah, 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 and you get into the game. This is very important. Onboarding into games, people are underestimating this as fuck. And this was, for example, what I was optimizing for games, like onboarding
Interesting.
experiences for games. Like when you have all the marketing you shoveled a lot of money into, you need a good onboarding experience so people actually stay there, become hooked, and then start paying you. And imagine like download Candy Crush tomorrow. Like you download it, boom, 1 level, 2 levels, 10 levels, whatever. It just goes and like dopamine, and your dopamine is like through the roof.
Right.
And then you get stuck at one time, and you're like trying to get through the level, and you're struggling. First day, second day, whatever, da da da. It's a week, and you're always struggling, and suddenly you see like, you're 2 moves away, but you didn't make it, and suddenly you get the offer like, hey dude, want to buy 5 more moves? It's a special
Yeah.
offer for you. And it'd be like, nah. You struggle for another week, and then you either purchase or you stop playing. Then you stop playing. After 4 or 5 days, you get a notification like, hey, dude, got something special for you, da da da, in the app. You open it, get some free shit, da 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 da. And it's like, since I'm already here, I'm gonna play the level. Boom, you breeze through the level like it's nothing. Bam, 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 bam. 5 more levels. Boom, stuck again.
Yeah.
Endless loop. And you just create tens of thousands of levels. Ta-da!
Good.
Works.
I love it. I think the two things that I took away from that too is like you said, I never thought about it this way. Like you're bringing up these really good points because you're ingrained in gaming and I am not, which is this intentional pull and tug between dopamine and excitement and frustration, which is genius. And then, your notification is how do you bring them back in, which is always usually behind a paywall. Um,
Dude, I'm gonna give you one thing. Like, try to remember one experience from your childhood when you went struggling with the boss fight and you
right.
were just like trying left and right. That first is like 10% AP, fuck. And it's like, God. That is it. That is,
Yeah.
and remember that time when you had it as a child and it was haunting you for like 4 days. That's
Hmm.
exactly it. That's
Yep.
exactly it. That gives you the
But
feeling.
but now they have a way to pay through it, right? Which is like,
Yeah.
when you were when you're at that young and you're playing like I'm actually obsessed with Dark Souls games and the whole From Software's IP and Elden Ring and all of the amazingness they've created
Mhm.
because they saw a potential for my generation to tap into that. Dude, Nintendo games were fucking impossible. The second Ninja
Mhm.
Gaiden, the original Battletoads, like, they were unbeatable, right? And they tapped into that, like, "I'm gonna make this shit so hard, and you're gonna get so frustrated, but when you do beat that boss, that dopamine rush is out of
Ab-
control, and that, your
Absolutely.
accomplishment just you feel so good, right? All the older I've gotten, I look back and I'm like, what did that really get me? I just beat a boss in From Software. But still, your brain, it feeds off that, right? I think the other thing that you said, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because I do think it's important. I've been in marketing my whole life. But as you said, they understood their target market, right? A lot of stay-at-home moms, women, they were playing this game. How important it is to understand that business side of things when you're making a game,
Absolutely. It's
right?
it's it's just like if you want to have a great product, you have to have great developers. It's a puzzle that needs a lot of pieces to fall into each other.
Mhm.
And if you have all of them, but you're missing the business understanding of this thing, you're gonna suck. It,
Right,
it's not it's not gonna. It worked in some cases. Some people just like blew up out of nothing. It's not impossible, but the likelihood of success, it's extremely low. People do
right,
have to realize that a starting gaming studio or a new game is basically like a startup, right? If you're not a well-known name,
right,
and even in the startup world, 98% of startups fail. It's the
right.
same in the gaming world, right? Here in Web3, there's like 6.5 games barely, right? Which people even played. Like there's some out of them, but they have like 13 players, or who gives a fuck, right? So
Right,
it's
right.
like
Who
making
cares?
you absolutely irrelevant. But you go just on Steam, I think it was like 14,000 games
Yeah,
annually released. How many of them do you even have you even noticed? 10,
right.
50? Like what percentage is that? Like that's nothing.
Yeah,
Nothing.
man, I would say like 25 to me max, and that's max, right? And it's
Max.
and here's the other thing that's the business behind it that I don't think is talked about enough. A lot of those don't come from my intuition or like hardcore researching, right? I'm going
Hmm.
to like IGN or Metacritic. They're telling me what these good games are, right? And that's if you think break that down, that's marketing in itself, right? Getting in front of the right publications to
Hmm.
tell the people what games you should be playing. Yes, obviously the bigger studios like Square and EA, like you're going to pay attention to their IPs that they release because they're well established. But to your point, man, you're an indie game and you're one of 14,000. Like, how the fuck do you do it? The only way
Yeah.
you do it is you understand business strategy. And to your point, you design a masterful game that gets you coming back and your gameplay stands out above the rest, right?
Absolutely. Like I couldn't agree more. Like for example, one of the biggest inspirations, if not the biggest inspiration for Degenheim was Hades. And I love their success
Ah,
story because it just speaks to me, right? I was watching Hades on streams and so on, and I was like, oh, it looks good. Why are people so crazy about it? And then I tried it, and I was fucking hooked. And I started like clumsily playing, and then I went all in, and I had like I ran through that game 103 or 13 times, I think.
wow. Yep.
At 32, peak heat, which is like a mechanic in the Pact of Punishment, which makes your game harder at
Right.
32 heat. And I remember when I played it at 32 heat at the final boss fight, and I had like one last like Death Defiance up. I paused the game, and I was sweating as fuck, and it was a few years back. I was a grown man, and I was like, I gave myself a pep talk. I was like, phew, phew, dude, like, God, you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it. Boom, and I did, and I was like, "Ah, ah." And I was actually, I had my PC, and I was actually at that time I was at my parents. I was over at their place, and they came to my to the room I was in. I was like, "Are you fucking crazy? Like, what are you doing?" And I was like, "You can't just explain this shit to them because like my father would be like." You're a fucking moron at your age. What the fuck, right? And this is just it. And he's like, I understood like, wow, this game is so fucking good. And the fact that they were an indie studio, they had a few titles that were roughly successful, like Transistor and so on. But a lot of the downloads and success of their previous titles came after Hades, right? But they had some name already, but they weren't someone like EA. And they were
Right.
a sub 20 man team. And I think supposedly Hades was developed at a sub $1 million budget. So it's like a indie game at its finest.
Right.
Boom, $120 million of revenue, king of the genre ever since. And they released it as an early access game for a whole fucking year. They listened to their community's feedback, they implemented it, and then they released it as a full game and even patched it further. And boom, huge success. So it's doable, but you have to have the business understanding, but you just got to make a fucking good game. And a
Yep.
lot of people are missing this, that they go either full business, it's like we monetize hard, we this is when we make money, and they forget about the game. And then there's a lot of people who just like focus on the game, and don't look at the marketing. How do we make it enjoyable to the people? Da 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 da. They go like all technical, and you
Yeah.
have to have a perfect blend of these two to make it happen. I think.
Right. And it's dude, it's a great analogy for life too. Like I know my superpower is doing what we're doing right now. I can cultivate very genuine conversation with, let's be honest, we talked on Discord and had a 15-minute conversation, right? Now
Hmm.
we're 54 minutes in and I feel like we've been talking for 10 minutes. That's my superpower, right? But I can't just concentrate on that, right? I need to understand how to market myself. I need to understand how to cut the videos correctly. I
Definitely.
need to understand how to create the hooks to get more people in to enjoy, because not everybody enjoys an hour and a half conversation, but most people enjoy a really great 2-minute clip of you talking about how Hades impacted Degenheim, right?
I hope so.
No, they absolutely will, because these are the things that people need to be talking about. But if I was so concentrated on I do the long format the best and nothing else, I would never be successful, right? Which is the same
Mhm.
analogy to what you're saying, is like you can't just concentrate on making an amazing game, because there's so much more that goes into it, whether how you distribute it, marketing, and all of those things. I have one more question about because I'm super excited to get into Web3 and Degenheim.
Mhm.
Because I actually went to design school because I wanted to be a gamer, right? I wanted to design games. But I quickly realized when I was in design school, I went to Penn State in the States, and it was actually one of the top 10 design schools in the country. Stanford and, a couple other ones were above that. But when you sit in a design studio, and it was probably a defeating part of my growth development. Bottom line, there was just way more talented people when it came to uh, just drawing and imagination. And I
Mhm.
realized quickly I was never going to be that, no matter how much I put work in. Like, these people just had a knack for it, kind of like you said in the beginning, and I had self awareness, right? So, how important is that? And I'm kind of going back to, like, you gave some great advice of how to get into the game industry. Is is it for someone like me who just loves games but still wants to get into the industry some way? And I think most people think getting into the industry, you have to be a great artist or a 3D artist and have that imagination. If you have that self-realization that you're not, are there other ways, in your opinion, to get into the industry, or is it all about just creating a great portfolio? And if you can't do that, you're out of luck.
No, 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 dude. Definitely, definitely. Um, there's so much more happening behind that, right? For example, if you're a person who can run successful ad monetization and like profitable ad campaigns, you're gonna make a shit ton of money. Even if you're just into marketing. Like I have a friend who was actually our former colleague. He was the head of user acquisition at the company I worked in. And he left the company. He grounded a small studio, and it's just him and like five, six people who are doing the creatives, like drawing art and so on. He's currently doing seven figures in in my
Wow.
country. And I do have to make clear that the average salary in my country is like 1,300 bucks a month. A
Wow.
month. And this dude just went, and just by being and already having the connections from this world, because like imagine you're a single man army. This dude on the mobile gaming market is currently managing a $30 million ad spend portfolio, and he successfully helped to global launched over 31 globally successful titles.
Hmm.
And he runs ads. He
Right.
can't draw shit. He's not a developer, right?
Right.
And like me, I was optimizing the user experience, right? And I was like, you look at data, and you also you optimize the UI elements, how they chain through each other, and you
Right.
also think about like the whole user flow. Like I do this, then I do this. Da, 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 and you just connect the dots and make it as seamless as possible. And it's just like I can draw for shit. Like I wasn't any masterful drawing person. And for example, our main artist, who's responsible for the collection and the key art and so on Degenheim, he's originally also an architect. He just
Right.
always had passion for drawing, and he was into gaming, and he's already 13, 14, 15 years, I don't know, been
Right.
drawing for
Right.
games as an
That's awesome.
architect, not as an artist. So
Right.
it's I think it's a balance of talent and passion and hard work, because
Right.
talent definitely gives you a head start and basically makes the cap at what you can reach higher, but
Yep.
you still have to have the hard work to get there, and you get some gifts. But for example, if you only had talent and never did shit, the guy who would work his ass off would probably outwork you at some
Right.
point.
Right.
But if you only put in, as a very talented person, a fraction of his effort, never. Oh shit! Sorry, Mike. My camera fell down. Sorry, dude.
totally,
See,
we're
this is,
totally cutting that
dude.
together,
This is
brother.
what
That is
this.
going on.
This
That
is
is
what I've been
going on, man.
telling you. That everything that was happening today and everything that could have fucked up did, and this just trolled me, trolled the shit out of me.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it. No, no, but you were saying something amazing, which was it is totally the balance between hard work and talent, right? If you just have talent, it's not enough. If you just have hard work, it's not
Yeah.
enough, but you put them together. I would
Hmm.
say the other thing, by the way, bro, I'm totally cutting that up and we're making a like
No, no,
a
keep it in.
film
We all
reel and
know.
we're putting that up, man. I cannot wait to get that together. One thing I wanted to add to this, and just would love to know if you agree with me, is both of those I still think need to be confined in or added to self awareness, right? Because if you're picking the wrong thing, like you can be, like I said, I was really, really passionate about gaming. I thought the way to get into gaming, the only way to get into gaming is have a great portfolio. I was never going to
Hmm.
beat the best of the best. But then I kind of went into the marketing side and the brand side, and that is something I can do because I do have the creative direction and the vision, but like doing it, I lack it because somebody's going to be able to do it better, right? But I was self aware
Absolutely.
enough to say like, here's the direction I need to go. Do you agree with that sentiment as well?
100%. Dude, I studied computer science. Uh, I was a developer, but it drew me already at university. I saw that everybody was just like, develop the best code. And I was like, yeah, but we're not making shit that is really like pleasantly usable. That's what differentiates successful apps from shit apps. That's why you have Instagram and not like shitstagram, whatever, because that has shit UX. Like people don't care about the quality of code. People care about the quality of experience. And I was being drawn towards that, and I or even saw that like I was a good developer, but I met developers which were like light years ahead of me. And there I realized like my talents are elsewhere. I have the business logic with the computer science degree and the technological understanding, which
Yeah.
other people are lacking. And I can also optimize this stuff and design and do this. So I can look at it from a very different point of view. Like when I design shit and think of ideas, I look at them like, are they business viable? How
Mhm.
can I make them optimal regarding the customer experience? So this and I also design stuff in such a way that like I know that this has competitive time to market. That this is not a nice feature that will take 2 years of development and bring shit to the table. And that
Right.
is like where I saw like, okay, I should be heading this way because there's better developers than me.
Right.
And if I hadn't had the self-awareness you mentioned, I wouldn't end up here. I
Right.
would be a developer and not a stellar one.
Right. Right. No, I love that, man. That's great insight. Uh, insane conversation, dude. We've been talking for an hour and we haven't even touched Web3. So I think I think it's time because I think and well, I know that you are one of the top people that I've talked to that actually has the
Ah.
skill set, right? To actually produce. There's so much shit out there. You see more of these Web3 quote unquote influencers, right? Who are just basically playing games and talking, but they're playing the games and they're saying this stuff is shit, right? It's
Mhm.
bad, right? And I love that Hades is your inspiration. I cannot wait to. Okay, the problem I have, and I say this all the time, I need a full-time person to manage the access I have to NFTs because I spend
Mhm.
all my time creating content and talking to people. It's like 2 other lifetimes to actually utilize all of this stuff. Uh, so I have to
And you're a
leave.
father, man. Don't like
Yeah,
remember that.
and I'm a
That
father,
is
so
the
I have to.
biggest feat.
Yeah, it's a huge, I mean, it's a huge feat. It's by far the most incredible thing I did. I mean, I think it's one of the main reasons we're put on this earth is to go through this process, and I feel very fortunate I was able to do it, especially later on in life. But what I'm getting at is I have to selectively pick the ones that I pay attention to, right? Uh,
Mhm.
and I know after this conversation, you will be on the top there. Grapes is another one. Imaginary Ones is another one. These are a very few projects that I actually plague my PFP, right? I will spend the time to go into the Discord, interact. I just had DSK Dow. I don't know if you've heard of him. Uh, Fantastic dude. So I've got maybe 10 that I can deal with, juggle at any time, and you will absolutely be one of them. And I love the fact that Hades is your influence. Let's get into it though. I don't think you have to go too far back, but I still want a kind of a condensed version of, well, how did you find crypto? Why Web3? Like, I'm interested in that story.
When I had my first development job, which I had
Right.
parallelly to when I was running the small studio of mine, a client approached the company with a request that they wanted to create an app for tracking people who were doing ransomware. It's like they encrypt your files and then they demand crypto for a space payment and so on. And some dudes were running rampant, and they did this to hospitals, like demanded huge amounts of money just because they encrypted hospital software, and people on life support were like at danger and so on. And so, there was a certain someone who wanted to track them down and supply this tool to governments,
Hmm.
and nobody wanted to do it at the company. I was a junior eager developer, and I was like, I'll do it.
Right.
And I sat on it for a week, created a prototype. Dudes came and were like, oh, this is cool. And
That's
we
awesome.
started doing it. And then
Right.
they were like, I was always like asking, like, why are we doing this, so on? And they were talking to me about what stuff is happening in the world, like dark shit, like I don't know if I should bring this up, but there's like human trafficking, child porn,
Oh,
stuff
that
like that,
you
all
can
this
talk
stuff.
about that stuff for sure.
And they told me that a lot of the stuff is being paid for in crypto,
Right.
and and that they wanted to create a tool that would help like track people down so they could like this stuff would be could be combated
Right.
against. And I was like, okay, and that was my entry to crypto. And ever since, I don't know what year it was. I remember Bitcoin was 8K. I don't know at which time it was. Bitcoin was
Okay.
8K.
Okay.
That was my entry to crypto.
Yeah.
And ever since, I was like vaguely into crypto. But NFTs and like the modern Web3 world in this space, I basically, it was like March till May 2021.
Right.
Everybody going fucking crazy. Everybody.
Hey man,
It's
I
about,
was an original mob at Hate Beast. I saw a million people in a Discord server. It was fucking nuts.
and everybody was like, digital ownership. This is so new. And I was like, what the fuck are these people talking about? Right? It's like haven't gamers been owning shit for the last 20 years?
Right,
And
right.
then it struck me, it was like, well, they haven't,
Yeah,
right? Because like I worked in this fucking industry and I paid for skins and shit. And can I sell one of them? I can't. Can I rent one of them? Can I trade it? I can do shit. It's just like, imagine buying a car and the retailer tells you, but you can only drive it on this street,
right,
not past 8 p.m. You better not sell it. Da, 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 all these things that are limiting to. And then I realized like, yeah, gamers are very familiar with the concept, but they
right.
never actually owned anything. And
Mhm.
I was like, it's about fucking time they did.
Yeah.
And then you look at it from the professional perspective, like look at CS:GO, right? CS:GO was doing what NFTs are doing without NFTs. And CS:GO is the best proof that this actually makes perfect fucking sense in games, which is basically tokenization of items, just like they did with skins, but they have it on their proprietary platform.
Right.
They, in secondary market only, did $32 billion of volume. Like
Yeah.
me trading with you, not me for buying from Steam.
Right, right,
That's
right.
6 times more than the top NFT collections combined ever.
I
Right?
know.
And
It's
it's just
insane.
insane. And suddenly be like, and so, someone was like, this won't work. And I'm like, here you have an 11-year-old game, which is 1 million concurrent players every fucking day for the last 11 years. and
Yeah.
they have a successful market. Imagine that one day, if we come to a paradigm shift where people will be like, can I play Diablo or Crypto Diablo? This I can only spend money in and don't get shit in return. This I can spend money in, but possibly get some returns in, like, oh, I got this armor, I can trade it, I can do this, compete, da 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 da. And if these games actually reach same levels of quality, so Crypto Diablo isn't shit, but it's like quality Diablo,
Right.
and I'd be like, which one do I play? The one I drop money into, or the one I can actually gain some benefits from? And it's
Right.
like obvious decision, and
I,
that's the whole idea behind
right.
that led to grounding this project.
Yeah, man. And I when it happens, I don't think it's if. I think we're at a point now where I can confidently say there's enough people interested and someone will crack the code.
Mhm.
But it's an interesting concept to think when that does happen, there could be a reality where someone is making the equivalent of minimum wage playing video games.
I certainly hope it will come. I That is one of my visions. I actually think that is doable because look at the 2021 bull run, Axie Infinity, Thedan Arena, and whatsoever. Back in the day, I was one of the disclaimer. I was one of the biggest critics of play and earn. And every game designer and economy designer I spoke to was like, dude, this is not going to last. And I was like, I know. And but when I spoke about it in Web3, everybody was like, "You're just fucking, you're envious." Da da da. Like, well, let's speak in half a year and we'll see, right? Nobody came back to me to have the talk again, right? Because I was true. But
Oh,
the
it was a
most
Ponzi
beautiful part
scheme
was
too.
it's like, yeah. But the most beautiful part was that there were some people making a lot of money, and that is
Yeah,
not sustainable. But imagine making like $20 a day, 30. Like
yeah,
even if you played for four hours, it's not going to be scalable or anyhow relevant for you. But imagine giving $40 to a family in Thailand, Vietnam, whatever, like Southeast Asian countries with
game
sweatshops
changer.
and so on, where people are working for $8 a week, and
Yeah,
suddenly you can make 20 a day,
yeah,
right? Here, it wouldn't mean shit, but you could actually solve potentially. I hope this happens, and I hope we can contribute to this, because if we do, I will tell myself that I have probably lived the most enjoyable life I had because I did something really, really well and really, really significant. And that would be that some people who are working at these places just fucking wouldn't have to. They
mm,
could imagine kids, instead of working and having that those poor conditions, just
mhm,
like imagine being a kid and play a game and earn a few bucks. Like
yeah,
that is actually a dream of mine. When we played World of Warcraft with my friend Adam, tremendous warrior, by the way, like always look up to him. We always speculate, like, dude, I wonder if there was a possibility to make money of playing because we loved it so much. But we were
right,
from Slovakia. Like back in the day, in history of Slovakia, like professional players in history, really successful. There was like one, which was Guardian, who played CS:GO for Navi,
yep,
and since then there are some as well. There's one in 20 years of history of of the country as an singular country, and it's like the chances were really slim. But now when I look at this, and instead of, like, you don't have to be a pro player, you can be just from like a developing country, and through a mobile phone or like some PC, you could play a game, and even if you make like $5, $10 a day, like here it doesn't matter for shit, but there it could be changing someone else's life. And if there is any, I don't think there is any nobler cause we could be chasing with this technology other than empowering gamers through ownership and potentially, hopefully one day, solving world's issues, at least partially, through stuff like that. Like that would
yeah,
be
dude.
amazing.
Yeah, 100% you nailed it, and I didn't even again, I didn't hit the ladder of life when I was born into the situation I was, right? I've never feared that I wasn't gonna have a meal. I've always had a roof over my head. So when I came into Hate Beast, right, I'm approaching it as like, wow. Like, even for my life at this point, like, Hate Beast could be a substantial amount of money, right? And then you start going into the chats, and I always say the first month and a half in Hey Beast was the most magical thing I've ever seen. There were hundreds of thousands of people in a Discord server loving each other, sharing knowledge, communities were built. The true voice chat of Web3 started in that server, I'm convinced. And it was so magical because there was this hope, right? And then a month before, and they realized there was a 0.00002% chance they were going to get hate list, all hell broke loose, right? But the magical time and me going into all of these, I was meeting people from all over the world and having those conversations, realizing like, dude, if someone sold this hape, one hape, it could change their lives for years, if not decades, right? And it really dawned on me like, that is really the true power. And so I love that you take that angle. I want to move to so we talked about the basic games. What motivates you? Why Degenheim? Why or anything from your journey in 2021 to Degenheim worth covering? Or we can jump into why Degenheim, but it's up to you.
We can merge those two in one.
Okay.
Why Degenheim? Because like when we were working on the project and it still wasn't public, we orchestrated a lot of stuff and we were working for a long time in the shadows before we came out to the world. And there was a huge like Degen wave, and we wanted to bring the Web3 culture and its nature into it. And also the creative part of Degenheim was fine in the fact that we created a world with no limits. Like you can have a flying saucer and whatever, and suddenly like a toilet can crush you, whatever. Like we can create the most crazy game there is, which can be incredibly funny, which gives the fun factor and it's entertaining and so on. So basically that, and what brought us to that is that, as I mentioned, I was a huge critic of play and earn, play to earn, because that was unsustainable. I think, and we wanted to do it that way. We wanted to show the world that, like, dudes, gaming is huge as fuck, and you gotta realize this. It's like, imagine, like, we minted $5 million, $10 million. It's like $5 to $10 million isn't a number in gaming. Like, like there's games which are doing that monthly, easy, and they're doing it in recurring revenue, right?
Yeah.
The real gold mine in gaming is not doing one stop hit. It's having one good title, one good IP that survives for 5 to 10 years. It's look at League of Legends, look at CS:GO, look at Candy Crush, look at Fortnite, right?
Yep.
Fortnite became so huge that Epic actually was taking studios which are developing Hitman, a 20 fucking year franchise, super successful in gaming, and reallocating them to Fortnite because Fortnite is such a big milking cow.
Yeah.
And that is the whole point. It's like I wanted to pursue this because look at what Angry Birds did, right? Angry Birds stood at the precipice of technology. They created a shooting game, you shoot something and hit something. So many online games, Java games, Flash games I played, which were exactly this. And actually, even Angry Birds, at their earliest stages, it was balls dropping into plobs of goo. And someone told them, like, dudes, give it nice visuals, give it a story, get it into the pockets of kids. You're gonna succeed. Bang! They fucking exited their company for $700 million, and if they did it like 2 years earlier, they would exit about $1 billion. And it wasn't a new concept. It was just like you use the advancements of new technology, which is mobile gaming, and you transfer the games from online games, which children are already playing, into their fucking pocket. And I think Web3 is the same. Like, ideally, I would like to be the Angry Birds of Web3, doing games the way games are supposed to be done. Not like, here's a token. Where's the game? Oh, I don't know. It will come sometime. Like, you know how many games did this and succeeded in the history of gaming?
Right.
Zero. Fucking zero. Imagine the World of Warcraft coming to you 20 years ago or whatsoever. And it's like, here's World of Warcraft Gold. Here's World of Warcraft Honor. And you'd be like, Yeah, but what do I do with it? Why should I purchase it? Right? And we're like, we'll do with it something sometimes in the future. Like, what fucking nonsense is that? It's like
Yeah.
the value of a currency is actually predicated by the economy it can be spent in, right? And if it's just a speculative asset, history has shown us, especially in crypto, pumps, dumps, and stays down, right? And it's just like a one-stop shop.
Right.
Instead, we always aim to like do all the proper heavy lifting, like the proper game and economy design. Releasing like we do now is like a give it to some people, they test it out, more and more people gradually as you publish new content, balance out the game, balance out the economy, so numbers actually align, and stuff is working. And
Right.
then you want to tokenize item, then you want to create a token and possibly inject it into the ecosystem, because you can actually spend it. And if our thesis is that if you create an ecosystem which people enjoy and possibly have the possibility to actually spend tokens and get tokenized items which might be of higher value than the token itself, like net, you have a very functional economy. So we wanted to build that, but it's hard as fuck because you have all the complexity of Web2 gaming, building a good game, building a good ecosystem, balanced economy, balanced game design, progression models, all this shit. And on top of it, you have all the tokenization, all the semi-open economy, so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
So that was basically the journey, and that was basically the idea. Because I do think that the few who actually arrive at this point, those will be like billion-dollar companies.
100% multi-billion-dollar companies for sure. I think that was a great explanation, by the way. I think what I'm interested from your perspective, and I think that the nut to ultimately crack is what you said, is how do you balance a sustainable economy through Web3, but create something people want to play? How do
Mhm.
you think about that from your perspective of balancing monetization in a good game? What are your thoughts there?
Whew. Well,
It's a massive question.
mhm, mhm. Um, well, I think an enjoyable game is imperative, right? And we saw the flaws of the narrative that it isn't, right? Because back in 2021, everybody was playing the crypto games which made the most money.
Right.
This is awesome, but there's one fundamental flaw. The token always goes down, obviously, right? And at that point, people who hated the shit out of the game but played it for the money will jump ship immediately, right?
Yeah.
Especially if I have the choice, like, I have 8 hours a day. I can spend it with two games I hate. I hate this one and I hate this one. This one makes me $300 and this one makes me $300. I pick the one I hate less, I would say. And then the token shifts, and for example, these go down. One makes me $100, or one makes me $200. If I only play it for the money, I switch games, and suddenly a new game comes out which can shortly make me $400 a day, and I'll be like, fuck this game as well, and fuck yours as well, and I'm jumping ship, and I'm just like hopping on to the next game. And guess what happens? It's like your player attention goes to fucking zero, and the
Yes.
problem is you're bleeding players and you're bleeding money because you're overspending on marketing to get new players in. So you're bleeding money, bleeding players. It's not working. This is usually the death of a game.
Right.
And in such an environment, when people do it just for the financial gains, it's inevitable. The moment your token starts falling, you're fucked. You're fucked. Right? Nobody has recovered from this. The only game that has properly is Axie Infinity, because they made so much money that even if they were hacked out of $600 million out of their own network, they were like, paying them, obviously it's not in dollars, isn't really
Right.
negligible
Right.
money, but they're still like, we can still do our shit, and they're doing it, right?
Right. Right.
So unless you do Axie Infinity stuff, which barely anyone will ever do because they were the first one, and that usually happens. It's just like CryptoPunks and Bored Ape. Like,
Yep.
the likelihood of someone doing the same is very small. You have to really answer these questions. You
Yep.
have to really think of how do we do something different? How do we do it better? How do we make it more sustainable?
Yep. And that is creating great gameplay, which is a perfect segue into explain the universe of Degenheim to me And why do you, in your opinion, think uh, it's an enjoyable game to play and will evolve into the part that everybody's missing, right? People have figured out how to make money and make a token and
Mhm.
make money short term, but why Degenheim? And the strategy and the
Mhm.
fun game playing. But first, introduce us to what Degenheim is and a quick breakdown of the
Mhm.
ecosystem and the
Well,
story.
actually, Degenheim is basically trying to be Web3 Hades, let's say.
Okay,
So it's an isometric top-down action-packed roguelite game. Biggest inspiration is Hades, but we also took inspiration from other successful roguelite titles such as Archero, Survivor IO, and Dead Cells, mostly for their means of meta progression, because
right.
Survivor IO and Archero are from Happy. Those dudes have probably the best working meta progression blueprint in the world. In the world, and we took huge inspiration from that. Like, we tried to combine the best of all
Hmm.
to create a title like that. And I'll be honest, I'm no maxi of anything. Not even I wasn't even like super confident. Like, our game will be the fucking best, and everybody is shit when compared to us. I was very humble, and I had a decent amount of stress when we were releasing it to people of how they will be taking it, and why I think we might be different, because there was a call where a person came to me and he was like, Milan, I know I gave you a lot of shit for the past year. I told you you're a grifter. I told you you're a scammer because the game wasn't there. I thought you bought a Lambo and fucked off with the money. I told you all kind of slurs that I could think of. But what the fuck did you deliver? Like, I never expected anything of this level of quality in Web3. I'm playing for 3 days straight. I'm currently at work and I can't wait to come home and play again. I was very wrong and I'm super glad I was very wrong. And I'm like, God damn, thank you. And I even probably had like a very manly, full of testosterone tear in my eye, because it's one thing when you get praise from people who support you always, but when the haters come and someone admits like, I was wrong, man, I was wrong, and you were right, and I'm glad you did what you did, and I respect that. I was like, means a lot to my heart, and that's a good testimonial.
Yeah,
And everyone who played it, like people were entertained.
yeah,
I had some people reaching out to me who were like super busy people, like Wall Street people actually. And that dude is like spending 10, whatever, 12 hours a day, 14 maybe even, at the office at Wall Street. And he just like texts me like, dude, every time I come home, 10, 11 p.m., I have 1 or 3 games before I go to bed, because like I'm just like thinking when I'm going from work, and it's like, I'm gonna play, and I'm like, God damn, this is like the best review you can get. And we gave it to non gamers. Like, I gave it to the most clumsy non gamers I I ever I ever seen playing, and they had fun. And at first they were like, they had no passion for gaming at all. They called games stupid, and they
right.
played it, and the enjoyment slash frustration balance, which I talked about, kicked in. It was
Yeah.
just like, oh, they got fucked in this level. One more game, one more game. Da, 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 da. And suddenly, like you see them. I watched some of them in real life. I watched a friend of mine who plays MOBAs and also like Warzone and stuff. I watched him. I gave a code to him. He played, and he was like, "Oh, well, how about I'll stream it to you?" And he played, and he was like, he was struggling with beating the boss of the first chapter. And I was like, okay, like one more round, whatsoever. And he played it, and he beat the boss, and he unlocked the new character, and was like, oh fuck it, no sleep. I now I gotta try the new character, and he's just like played two, three, four more games, and then he like turned it off and like, Milan, I'm turning it off. I'm going to fucking sleep. If I don't turn it off now, I'm gonna stay up till 6 a.m. and I'm gonna be feeling shitty at work. Bye.
Yeah.
And just like turned off, and it was like these kinds of reviews so early. Like the majority of the content we have ready isn't even released yet. When
Right.
these came, I was like, dude, it meant so much to me.
Yeah.
I was so overwhelmed with this. I
Hmm.
never expected, despite having the confidence in it being a really good game, I
Right.
never expected to get such good feedback. And
Yeah.
I think we're on a good path that we implemented all the Web2 heavy lifting correctly, and then we can gradually proceed to all the Web3 integrations and so on into a very solid game.
Yeah, and dude, amazing. Well, couple thoughts. One, isn't it amazing to get the fodder to come back and say you made it a great product? And it's something as simple. Isn't it incredible? Something as simple as that makes those sleepless nights worth it, right? I think I had a similar experience that happened to me a couple days ago. I mean, I've been grinding on this stuff for years at this point, right? And I'm like, what am I even making any progress? But then I get a comment. I just had the founder of DSK DAO on, and we had a really like heartfelt conversation. And I got a comment, and the guy was like, "Hey, man," and he's like, "Thank you so much." He's like, "I struggled with drug and alcohol," and he was like, I just had people like you in my life. I know I would do better, but like I know you now, and that means the world to me. And
Dude,
like
that
that
is
one
awesome.
comment, right? Like it's like, oh, none of it matters. Like that's why we do what we do. And it's just so cool that you're getting those comments because you've worked so hard, and I can tell how passionate you are about it. I have a couple other um kind of questions on the or there's a bunch of ways I want to go. So I think the first one is I always do this because I think it's important to get more of a concise. So think about an elevator pitch, right? We're
Mhm.
going to an investor, 2 minutes max. Why is me as a Web3 person? Why should I spend my hard-earned money on Degenheim and be excited about what you're doing?
As a customer, as like an NFT collector, or as an investor? It's like there's a
Yeah,
different.
those are two things. I think as an NFT customer, there's all this hype around all these games,
Mhm.
and I have my choice to spend my money with some of them, and you can be one of them. 2 minutes or less. Why Degenheim?
Well, we always built it up. Honestly, we could have minted in 2021, early 2022, made a shit ton of money and just disappeared. We decided not to. We were building the game in silence. I spent all of my money on it. All of my. I even went into debt. I was so convinced we were doing something cool. And we're just passionate gamers and also gaming experts. All of the people in like the majority of the team, well over a decade in the gaming experience. And we did what all the successful games in Web2 did, not the other way around as the majority of the Web3 games did. Now, no token first, game and economy later. No, game first, uh, economy first, balancing, gradual release, all the stuff that makes successful games successful games. The whole process. We're not skipping steps. We're using all the time proven knowledge, which actually is making 3 billion players happy in a $287 billion industry, and we're applying them to Web3. And that is very rare in the space. And I think that is why Degenheim has the potential to be the game that stays for 5 to 10 years. And guess what? If you want to be successful, guess what? If you had like the very OGest of OG Fortnite skins and you could sell them and nobody can purchase them anyhow but buy them from you on secondary market, how much would they be worth now?
Right.
And that is somewhere we want to be, just like CS:GO did, and so on.
You nailed it, man. That was great. I think the next one I'm very interested in. You don't have to name projects, but I want your raw, honest opinion on this. Um, I know you're creating a good product, but you're obviously not getting the hype of,
Mhm.
let's say, other hype projects right now in the gaming meta. Is it as simple as these games and IPs are hyped because people think they can make more money? Or is there something else there? Your honest opinion about kind of the Web3 gaming meta and what is going on.
It's a combination of things. One thing is we never use, first of all, Degenheim to this day was built up 100% organically. Zero bots, zero fake followers, zero paid influencers, zero ads. Zero marketing spent. We haven't spent a single dollar on marketing to this day. That is one key difference. We didn't use a lot of the hype tactics, like release a, not pointing fingers, a six-figure trailer and then minting for a couple of million with copied art from myself, for example, or whatsoever. Right? We always built it honestly, and that appeals to some people. But when you're in the thrill of Web3 trading, let's say in NFTs, you got to realize also in this market that there's two kinds of people. Some people who can see the delayed gratification in hopefully successful businesses in gaming and so on, and some people just want to see big green candles, money printer go brrr, and just like sell the NFT they minted yesterday for 10x, 20x, 500, whatever, right? And you got to respect that. I'm not bashing it. It was one of the hardest realizations in the space that, for example, while the price was going briefly up, everybody was like, yeah, cool, cool, cool. Price went down. So many people who were hard believers, super friends, super supporters, started giving us so much shit and they faded us. And I'm not trashing them. I respect the fact that this is the market and some people are there purely for the financial gain. They don't give a fuck about what you're doing. Just like a lot of VCs are in the investment game. They're like, oh, your product is so important, so perspective. And it's like they're just thinking like, I put this amount of money in, how much money do I make out? It's the same attitude, and you got to respect that. You you have to play the game, or the playfield of the game you're in, right? And I think it's also due to that, right? We didn't release a token yet. We weren't chasing the quick pump, and we could have. We definitely could have. Like 2022, we could have pumped up the token, fucking did a lot of money, but
Oh yeah.
I knew how that would end up. And my father raised me in such a way that you have to you have to be an honest person. If
Love
you made any money or whatsoever unlawfully, or you lied or you cheated your way into it, you shouldn't be having it. You don't deserve it. And I knew how that would end. The token would go up, everybody would be like, yeah, and suddenly it would go down, and everybody would be like, and I'm sad, and people would be just fucking down a lot. And guess what? Do you want to do this to your early supporters? No, you don't. You want to create something that is hopefully sustainable, where you can reward them, where you can be the next, not even CSGO. You could be like 1% of CSGO, which is like a tiny, tiny, tiny,
it. Yep.
tiny fraction of that. And then when the game hopefully gains on popularity, and you have the people who are the early supporters, have the early skins, early armor, early whatever, some rare pieces which cannot be obtained anymore, like heirloom items, which they can trade off to new players. Like, imagine a simple scenario, right? You play League of Legends for 13 years, suddenly you have kids, and you can't play anymore. Some new kid comes and you decide to sell off your skins because Web3 and it is possible. And you have some season one super rare skin which the kid always wanted. The kid buys it, the kid's fucking happy. You made money. You had 13 years of fun, you made money back, you're fucking happy as well. You had your fun and you have your money. And the new kid is like hyped, and they will just fucking play the shit out of the character.
Yeah.
Everybody wins. And
Yeah.
that is what we're trying to create. And it's very hard to, for a lot of people who are just there for the financial gain, it's hard for them to understand or see the value in that, or wait for so long.
Right.
And I
Right.
totally accept that. And I
Yeah.
totally accept that. I think our time will still come, because look at what gaming tokens did in the non-gaming bull market. Without games,
Right.
without proper economies.
Right.
Imagine when we come, because we will also make a token and actually integrate it into the ecosystem with a game, with an already functional economy that is balanced, that is self-sustainable, that is performing. Like any currency that was implemented in such a system in the history of gaming was honor in World of Warcraft, arena points in World of Warcraft, whatever, coins, gems, Eve Online, that game, this game, whatever. There was super high demand for it, especially if you had place to spend that currency on something. People are chasing it, and that's where we're heading.
Yeah. You said a bunch of amazing things, but the thing that resonated with me most that I talk about all the time is, and it took me a while too, right? I came into this industry with, and I think I told you, our mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. Like what we are doing here is critically important, especially now that we have Apple Vision Pros. We're getting into VR, right? It's really going to create whole new mental issues that we don't even know exist yet. You're literally going to start detaching from reality, and people will be more connected than ever, but won't know how to have a common conversation like this, right? It's going to be a wild time. But to your point, it was so hard for me to realize that my brand, most people don't give a shit about in this industry. They want the content creator that's telling them what project to chase and how are they going to make the most money. They don't care about the real humans behind the projects that are making the good shit, which I care about, right? And it's such a tough pill to swallow. But to your point, and I firmly agree with you on this, the long game, and this is true for life. Again, why we have these conversations, 100% of the people that I talk to that are creating and doing good say one of the top things that they know and believe in is long work over a long period of time, delayed gratification. And if you do the right thing in an honest way, it will come, right? And I think it is so, again, critically important for people to understand that. And now, you vibe with that, and that warms my heart.
Nope. I couldn't agree more, man. It's just like that.
Sorry, I hit the mute button. So, insane conversation. We've been talking for an hour and 45 minutes at this point.
People are going to be bored for so long.
Dude, we've had people watching the entire time. Multiple people watching this entire time.
That's
Really flattering. I have literally a stream of comments. I'm talking to people as commenting, which brings me to the next. I actually have meetings, so I need to start closing it down. But I don't want to not talk about a couple audience questions that we have. And then I definitely want to talk about the next 6 months or so of what we can expect. But let's start with the question. There was a comment actually a way back is, what is the reason for the change in the art, making passes instead of llamas? What are the benefits of the pass and the degenesis? Kind of break down the different NFTs in your direction currently.
Yeah. Well, why we went for llamas in the first place was that the Degen vibe in Web3 was very strong, and I saw the potential in those animal personas. Like, for example, what Pudgy Penguins did with Walmart and their plushies and so on. I had that in mind since 2021. That if the IP takes over and you could do this, like that would be the perfect thing. Hence why I give them all the kudos, and what they are doing is brilliant. Because I see what you can do business wise with that. I saw that like 2 years ago, but people just didn't get really that fond of the IP as that, and the Degen vibe kind of died down. So we basically thought about like, okay, how do we structure this so it's not like dependent on the Degen culture that much, and we can actually make it very accessible also for upcoming like Web2 people, right? Because like imagine Web3 Degen vibe died down, and suddenly you have Web2 people coming in, and you have to tell them like, oh, do you know 2 years ago there was something like the Degen culture, and everybody will be like, what? And like the amount of explaining, and as I mentioned, onboarding has to be seamless and like very intuitive. The amount of even explaining to new people would be so high, it would be like shooting yourself into the foot, right? This way you can make it more appealing, even to the general public. It more reflects the qualities of our artist, and we basically and it has been done before. For example, look at games which went for a very nice look and stylish look like this. CSGO was undisputed for many years. Boom, Valorant came, and they had their own unique art style and so on. Success, right? It's CSGO with a few abilities and so on and so on. different art style, but their art style is very, very appealing. It was
Right.
even one of their theses that they wanted to make a competitive esports shooter that's stylish
Right. Right.
and it vibed with people. So, like every decision we actually do production wise, we base on stories that actually already happen in the gaming world and have
Right.
been successful. We're not doing like YOLO decisions like let's try that, let's try that. No, 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 no. Everything we do is stuff that we see like okay, this succeeded, this worked, da 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 da, and we all also think forward of how we can do this to be appealing for the Web2 people because they will come.
Yeah.
They will come, especially if they see that there can be good games they can actually have returns on. That will
Right.
be highly appealing, especially for those who are super competitive and good at the games,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we thought that the brand needed something like this.
Yeah.
And as for the benefits of the tokens, we basically did two collections. One was the Genesis, and one was basically Degenheim. And Degenheim we gave out like we didn't have a high mint price. Maybe we could have gone higher, but we didn't want to. We wanted Degenheim to be accessible to people because the reason is that you don't want to create a game that is just for the elites or financially very gifted. You
Yeah.
can't
It's a
scale
numbers
on
game,
that.
man.
My man, right? You can't scale on that. So hence why we did like the Genesis. Imagine it's like a you go to a concert or venue, standard ticket, VIP ticket, right? You both get to the show, but these guys get more, right? Privileged access, this, that, right? And you can do that in gaming, right? Degenheim get something, the Genesis get way more. You got the armors, right? They were exclusive to the Genesis holders, right? If the day comes, and I hope it will, right? And Degenheim is popular and there's thousands, tens of thousands of, or how many players, and you're one of the guy who has like the 300 armors and nobody can get it anywhere either from you or anyone else who has other than the 300, how valuable will be that? And you
Right.
got that for fucking free,
Right.
right? And
Right.
more and more and more. That is how you can actually reward people that stuff that is either otherwise unobtainable you get for free, or stuff that other people have to pay for, like
Right.
chests and so on, you get for free, right?
Yeah.
And that gives you, and you can use it both ways. You can use it to your advantage if you're the competitive player, or you can trade it if you're not the
Yeah.
competitive player, and you can
Right.
use it economically.
Yep.
So it should potentially cater to both the target audiences, the moneymakers and the players.
Yep. I love it, man. That's a great explanation. And I think he did ask about the past too. Is there any information around the past?
Basically, it's a visual change to bring brand consistency because, as I
Okay.
mentioned, the llamas weren't like really consistent with the brand anymore, and
Right.
we created a whole new collection with humanoids, which so far had very good reception from
Yeah.
people,
Right.
and we're basically using the old collection for people to claim new things. Also,
Yeah.
because like you want to keep up with trends and with novelties of smart contracts, you want to have better smart contracts, and for that,
Yeah.
like you need to do this shift. And like if we wouldn't have to do this, we wouldn't. It costs us money. It costs us a lot of time, a lot of work, right? But we're doing it for the people because it's like you get better art and like the downside of that is non-existent, right? You clean up the non-existent brand in inconsistency and you basically give out new art to people. It's just like
Yeah.
imagine it as a token which allows you access to the stuff. It's like
Right.
whatever you were supposed to get with the original collection you might be getting now. Either we transfer it to the new collection which you get for free with the
Right.
passes, or we keep it with the passes. Either way, you're still getting all of it.
So is a simple way to look at it is the pass is about the equivalent of the large collection with new art. You're still going to get kind of the similar access.
There's passes for both. Even the Genesis was transformed into passes, and
Okay.
even
Okay.
the Genesis will get the updated art of humanoids. So it's
So it is
like
one of the main reasons for it then is really updating branding to stay consistent, which I totally agree with, and I think that's a great move to just stay relevant. And I think that speaks to and is a perfect segue into the future, right? Like, how do you plan to evolve the IP? I mean, I know I was a little offended when you talked about the best roguelites. You didn't mention Binding of Isaac because I'm obsessed with that
I
game.
know Binding of Isaac, but I have to say I never played it. Hence why it's
So
like it's
good.
hard to get inspired by something you never played.
I will. So,
But I'm very familiar with it.
it's a great game. I will say though, they basically Binding of Isaac 2 was a DLC called Repentance, where they kind of updated the artwork, but it was exponentially harder, and I stopped playing the game because it was too hard, and I lost the fun factors that you were talking about, right? So I think that, segueing into that, how do you plan? Because I think roguelikes by default keep people interested because there's always a new experience every time you play, right? But how do you plan to make roguelite a 10-year brand and keep it relevant? So talk to me about the future as much as you want to divulge, because I'm very interested in that.
Well, it's called live ops, and it's basically what every free-to-play big game title is doing. It's creating new content that keeps the carrot on a stick dangling. That every time you reach something new, you get something new, and that is how games have been surviving. Like Fortnite, if Fortnite had the same map for the last 10 years or how many it is out, like people would be bored as fuck out of it. But since they went through many seasons with Thanos special event and Goku like shooting Kamehamehas and everything you can think of, like map destroyed, vehicles, this, that, and suddenly they made a return to the original map. Boom! Record numbers of players ever by giving them what they loved and they already had. And that is how you do it. You can always create new chapters. And as I said, we got hugely inspired when it comes to meta progression from Archero and Survivor IO. And Archero is exactly like that. Like Archero, when it came out, it was a game which had a few talents and a few levels and so on. So far, it is a game that has I don't know how many chapters, I don't know how many level rarities, playable characters, and so on. It's like you add progression verticalities. At first, you have talents, then you have items, then you have, I think, character progression, and then it just like goes nuts. Then you have artifacts, then you have dragons, then you have socketing items, runes, shit, special events. You got the heroic mode, which goes parallel to the and suddenly, if I was playing the game for the whole fucking day, I wouldn't have enough time to go through it. And that
Right.
is always have like 3 carrots dangling on a stick like this in front of you, and it's like you don't even know what to chase. But you have to create the right amount because like that is, for example, my problem with Skyrim. There's too many carrots, and I don't know what to do first.
Oh, what a
It,
great insight! Because I agree.
it just like I played Skyrim so many times, I never finished it just because like I got carried away in so much shit, and I just like kind of stopped caring about the main storyline at some point. And this is basically the thing. It's a combination of very solid meta progression, which keeps you coming back. But you have to combine it with an enjoyable core gameplay loop. That is what Happy has been doing with their games, and that is what we are trying to mimic as well. Because Happy has been doing tremendously well. Archero made $200 million of revenue, and Survivor
Huh?
IO was at one time, I think, doing $2 million a day. A day.
That's insane.
That's insane. And it's the same exact models. It's just meta progression with a addictive core gameplay loop that serves as a that you actually enjoy, but it is a very enjoyable grind and harvest mechanic for the resources, which you then apply to the meta progression, which allows you to progress further, to return to the core gameplay loop to advance further. And this is
Right.
like a never-ending cycle. And that's
Right.
what we're doing, and that's what the very successful games have been doing
Yeah.
for years
Dude,
and succeeding.
I love it because what I heard, and I say this a lot too of games that I'm really into, is you're making you're dedicated to continuing to progress the game, but you're doing it with meaningful intention based off years of knowledge and research. And I love, again, dude, you've like you've turned a lot of my thoughts into words throughout this process. And the other one was explaining why I was frustrated with Skyrim. Everyone freaking loves Elder Scrolls, right? And I'm like, damn, like it is a good game, but like when you get to the second town, there's already 400 things to do, right? And so I love that in that core storyline that what you're honing on is going to create the right couple carrots to keep you interested in coming back. So I love that explanation. Any um I always have a second question. I lied. I do have a second question. It's a pretty softball one, but we'll do that question. Um and then I'll say my closing comments when you round it out. But before that, there's another community questions. What games currently? I know you probably don't have time to play games, but if you're playing games, what are they, and what games do you um, appreciate or respect currently in the current gaming ecosystem?
Currently, I barely play, yes, and I only play games I can play with my friends. Since yes, when you're when you're running businesses and so on and
Right,
doing
right,
such stuff, you don't have that much time, but you want to keep the connections, right? And my friends were always gamers, so like they're going out, they have a beer and so on, and I'm not really joining them that often, but it's much more convenient just like to sit down and play a game. And one of the groups they play Warzone, so we play Warzone, and the other one plays Smite. Smite I have actually played for 9 years after I stopped because
yeah,
people stopped playing, but then just like two of the friends were like, dude, you want to try Smite again? I was like, fuck yeah, like let's do it. And so this is like it pains me because I have a library full of games. Like I have God
right,
of War, I have Red Dead Redemption, I have Cyberpunk. I never had these games installed because I don't have the time. Because I know myself. I love good single player experiences, but when I play single player experiences, I disappear for 2 weeks.
yeah.
Like I I shit you not.
I
My
love
ex
that,
girlfriend
dude.
was accusing me of cheating on her when I installed Witcher 3 and I fucking ignored everyone and everything for 3 to 4 days straight. Like I wasn't taking calls, I wasn't replying to people. I woke up, did a shower, whatever, Witcher 3. And it was the only thing I did.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I know myself why I'm like also like dodging these single player experiences because I like to enjoy them. I want to be so immersed that I think like I'm Geralt, I'm Kratos, I'm this guy, I'm that guy. I get so into it
yeah.
that I I will get this privilege when I'm done with work and when I realize the grand vision I have and
Yeah.
in between that I can only use games as means of maintaining my relationships with my friends.
Right. Someone just said like golf, online gaming is the new golf outing where business actually gets
Absolutely.
done, which is really an interesting thought. And I'm
And you
with
don't
you.
have
Like,
the hangover, which is a very good benefit.
yes, yes, yes. And I think I'm with you. I've found as I've gotten older, I used to love the open world thing when I was little, but like
Mhm.
I just played through Final Fantasy 16 and I loved that it was linear, but it also gave me options at times to explore and level up,
Mhm.
and I've learned to enjoy that a lot more. I love story, like, I haven't beat it yet, but I'm, like, slowly working through God of War, but I'm with you, like, I would prefer to have 5 days straight to get through it, and it's hard, but I think you make a lot of good points, and, I totally vibe with what you're saying. I think, the last kinda question is, it's kinda twofold. One, there's people that have been in chat the whole time. They're
Mhm.
in. They're in. How did they get involved? They wanna get involved. What do they do?
Well, join the Discord. It's public. There's a lot of information. I also have like a channel like Ask Milan, and people can ask whatever. There's a lot of questions already answered throughout the two
Right.
years of its existence. If people want to play, the easiest part is basically buy at least one Degenheim NFT. We're rolling out a big patch, and after that patch, we're basically giving access to a whole big new batch of players, and I think we'll be giving out instant access to basically all our holders.
Okay.
That is one thing. Other than that, like you can still wishlist on Steam. You can apply on our website, but I think we already have like 32,000 subscriptions for early access
Wow. Wow.
organically. Still, dude, I was overwhelmed. Like I
Wow.
was like, I remember
All
when we
organic.
released the trailer in 1 week. The one dev came to me like, dude, we have 14,000 subscribers, and I was like, let's tweet about it. Before I finished the tweet, it was like 16, and I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, when did that happen? And it
Wow.
was just like going up,
Wow.
like insane, and that was overwhelming as well for me. So
Right.
that is also a thing, and we're also like giving away codes in various activities. I'm also giving out codes to communities, to, for example, like the content creators such as you, because you also have communities, and it's like always a nice thing that you can give out things to your people.
Right.
I always, as we talked before, I think kindness breeds kindness, and I
Yes.
usually try to still approach it that way. That if I can be kind and, for example, give something away, it doesn't cost me shit,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it makes like you give out people, give out other people, and people then like, oh, thank you, and it's like, why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Everybody wins. And
Well,
if I can do that, I usually just do that.
yeah, I'm glad you said that because the person that asked is from my community. So there's some alpha. Maybe something's coming
Yeah,
your
so
way.
follow Mikey and you'll get it. That's the way.
Okay. Two last questions. I literally have a meeting in 8 minutes, but I want to talk for another hour. We're gonna have to have many more video conversations.
Oh well.
I think we could actually have really interesting, like short form conversations about just gaming meta and Web3 in general, and they would make great quick hitters. I'd love to talk about that in the
Why not?
future. But two last questions. At 6 to 12 months, anything that you can divulge about drops of new NFTs, how the game's evolving, like tangible things that you can drop? And if not, that's totally fine.
Well, you're definitely going to see armors in game, and they already have been dropped. You're going to see lands in the game, and they're gonna be dropped. More I cannot say on this front.
That's fine.
However, also the new art definitely going to have some utility. Like everything we do will play a role inside the game and possibly also outside the game.
Right.
And within this, we want to like fully release the game out of early access, so that it's like publicly available and everyone can play.
Right.
Until that, we'll be continuously releasing patches. So far, we have been releasing 1 to 2 patches every week,
Right.
and currently we've been holding off because we're doing one big patch. So continuous upgrades, new chapters, new bosses, new playable characters, new environments, like virtually everything. Like every vertical we have in the game,
So exciting.
we have a lot of stuff that is like made and still not published. Like we have 10 chapters of the game, and like we're currently releasing chapter 4.
Yeah.
So
I love
there's
it.
like so much content. Like literally, we have like 60 enemies. I don't know how many bosses. I don't know how many mini bosses. I think like 15, 20. I don't know. Over 100 unique abilities. And it's like we just like in this patch we're expanding the pool of items. We'll be having 70. No. 36 items, each with 2 unique abilities, so 17 new abilities and effects just on the items. It's a whole new shit. And
Yeah.
on top of that, on top of that, we plan on doing what we did before. We want to give power to the people instead of whitelist metas and this and that. I'm a very big proponent of giving power to the people. It's like, go play the game, go qualify yourself for the airdrop, for the token, for the items, da 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 da. Like instead of you having to suck up to some mod, you can be just like, I'll just play the game and enjoy myself, and at the same time, I'm gonna be possibly earning some stuff that can be airdropped to me and also contributing to my token allocation. Because so far we're actually tracking everything. Like even the people who are the Genesis holders, they got the advantage that they got earlier access, so they're already contributing to their allocations already. We are tracking who is where, who achieved what, da 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 da. All this shit plays a role. The more you play, the further you go, the faster you get there, the better you are, the better for you. in the end, even if you're in for the collectives.
That's amazing, man. And I love hearing that. All right, I really need to wind down because we are
Yeah, yeah.
again, we're gonna have many more video conversations. So I'll ask the last questions, I'll say my closing comment, and we'll call it a day. So the last question I always ask, be brutally honest. You've been part of a bajillion Twitter spaces, you've talked in Twitter space, I've heard you talk in Twitter space. You now have gone through the Midlife Crisis podcast experience. Please give me feedback, comment, review. How do you think it went?
I love the fact that it was a no bullshit thing. I I hate scripted shit, and every time someone came to me with spaces and they're like, this is the outline, I'm like, I'm gonna wing it, right? Not my thing. And I think there's a lot of mindless shilling and circle jerking in the Web3 space, and it's just like people pumping each other's in their own backs. And I think the Web3 would be a better space if there were more people who had a more similar format to you and to what we had here. Because like you go into the depth and you see what people actually think, and you see that are they passionate? Are they competent? Are they experienced? Do they even have what it takes to actually build this thing? Or are there some fucking phony tokenomics professor magician, whatever the fuck, like a thing that a year ago didn't even exist, right? Made up shit. And it's like the less of the made up fake pretentious shit there is, and the more of stuff like this there is, where people get actually grilled and you get these hard questions, which I actually really really enjoy, because it makes you show like, does this dude know what he's talking about or not? And the more like this happens in the space, the better. I wish there were 10, 20, 30 people like you doing this in the space. Absolutely. Would be just a huge plus. So I'm really thankful for actually having the chance of being here and being invited. Huge big up to you for doing this the way you do
Dude,
this.
thank you so much, man. Warms my heart. Your response is exactly what we're going for, and it means the world to me, especially coming from someone like you. I mean, I think if I look back, kind of my comments over our conversation, one, you got vulnerable, man. Like it's you shared some things about your past that most people don't, and that's being uncomfortable. So like that alone, I already can tell. Like most people don't want to do that, so I appreciate that. That means the world to me. Two, time. You have very limited time, and we just talked for over 2 hours and had a fantastic conversation. But I think that 2 hours is very impactful, and I cannot wait to cut this up and get the real messages out, because that's why we're here too. Three, you're highly skilled at what you do. I will not
Ah,
stress I will not stress enough that you are the founders that we need in this space. You are this, like, I wish the hype appreciated these conversations, because to your point, I totally agree. This is what the space needs. And it will get there eventually. But you're damn straight, I'm gonna be on my horse with my golden spear with people like you by my side. And we're gonna change this fucking place. We're gonna change this space for the good, because I coined this with the DSK founder last episode. Unfortunately, the mantra "nice guys finish last" is kind of true in life. But if we get enough nice, intentional, good dudes together as an army, we can fucking finish first. And I'm glad that you're part of my army now, because I know we can do this. So thank you so much for the time. Genuine human being, highly skilled. I cannot freaking wait to play your game. I will be an avid. I will put hours into your game and give you genuine feedback as well. Out of all of the gaming people that I've had on my show, I shit you not, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. You're top dog, man. You're the best gaming founder that I have talked to, hands down. I've got people from my community already joining your Discord because of this conversation. So,
thank you.
yeah, man, thank you so much. You're a fucking goat, and we're gonna do this again. And let's just kick ass in life together, brother. Thank you so much. I have to
That should
hop
be one
right
thing.
now, but I will
Yeah, dude.
Let's have a voice chat in the future, but I actually have to go to like my regular day
Dude,
job.
go. I don't want to like
Dude,
distract you from
I
that.
mean this when I say this. We've talked for now 2 hours and 15 minutes on a video camera. I fucking love you, dude. You're the fucking
Yeah,
go.
thank you very much. Like
Absolutely.
likewise, really
All right.
appreciate it. Go to your meeting. Go to your
All
meeting.
right.
Thank
Later,
you.
brother.
Bye.